Good evening, friends, and welcome to a Friday Forensics with Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Tonight, we're going to be covering the Idaho 4, the horrific crime scene and the evidence in the document dump that the Moscow PD, along with the prosecutor's office, immediately released. And this, by no means, is all of the documents as it pertains to this investigation, Ed. Uh, this is just a small part of what they're going to release over what they say over a few month period, 2 to 3 months. So we could be looking at information coming out into September and beyond as it pertains to the investigation. But what we see in these in this recent document dump, is a ton of excellent police investigative work. And Ed, I want to just go to you before we play our first piece. What your thoughts are as a crime scene and evidence collection expert. You worked in the NYPD and processed over 2,600 crime scenes. We talked about this case. There's over 200 videos with us talking. Your thoughts on that document dump?
Well, as you said, it was a very thorough investigation, both forensically and investigatively. A mass difference between Canton and MSP and what they did out in Moscow and Idaho State Police. Unbelievable work. They were looking at everything. They were turning over all stones, dotting every I, crossing every T. They dug up everything that they could possibly dig up. And there were all kinds of searches that they did, all kinds of subpoenas and court orders and search warrants that they did. They did search by foot, by vehicle, by aircraft. They were looking everywhere. In some cases, they were very successful. In other cases, they didn't uncover the weapon, and the clothing. But we have some clues as to what potentially happened to them, especially with that shovel that was covered from the back of his car over in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just say this. There were so many naysayers, so many people, including family members, who felt that the police department and the investigators weren't doing enough. And we always said that a lot of things that happened behind the scenes, and we would wait until the trial was supposed to happen, and we didn't anticipate Kohberger changing his plea to guilty. But we were waiting for that trial, Ed, so we could go to these pro-burgers and these people who are like cheerleading for Bryan Kohberger and saying, hey, we got the wrong guy, there's somebody else who did this. When we see this type of information come out in a short part of a document dump, the treasure trove of information that we are gleaming from these reports is just overwhelming. And it has to say to the people who are out there saying, well, they were quick to point the finger. Moscow, Idaho just wants to get a conviction and move on with this case. No, they dotted their I's and crossed their T's. And I want to also say, you were the first to say that, thank God, Captain Lanier, who was the first ranking officer on the scene, the higher ranking officer, he said, let's get on the phone with the Idaho State Police Crime Lab. How important was that, Ed, as it pertains to evidence preservation in this case?
In Clint Eastwood's movie, he once had a famous line, said, man's got to know his limitations. Okay. Well, he obviously understood the small town police department that he came from and what the capabilities were of that agency. And he realized the scope of this crime scene was beyond the ability of the their police agency. While they have very competent crime scene people, it's just was such a large crime scene with so many intricate types of forensic evidence, including blood stain pattern analysis and spatter and so forth and so on. And it was such a heinous quadruple murder that he got on the horn and said, hey, let's get the state crime lab out here ASAP. Okay. Again, unlike what was done in some of the other high profile cases we've been recently talking about, they had a competent supervisor at the scene who realized, let's get some more experts here.
Yeah, Ed, well said. The audience is swelling right now, and I want to say thank you to the moderators, the replay viewers, the super chatters, the replay, the folks who leave us comments, and people who positively engage in the chat. So a big hello Friday night here in New York City. I don't know where you're watching across the globe. Let us know where you're watching, city, state, and country. We'd like to say hello to everybody. Some of our fans from Germany said it was way, way early in the morning. So they're going to be watching on the replay. But look, we had people go as far as telling us, this is on our website, Ed, that the bodies were never removed from 1122 King Road. That nobody ever saw the remains of these 4 victims taken out of the residence. And in these documents, the 4 bodies were removed on the night of the murders, the morning of the night of those murders. 11:13 at 21:28 hours, Sergeant Dustin Baker, you'll see his name all over these documents, and Officer Jay Waters escorted Xana and Ethan Chapin first to the Spokane, Washington Medical Examiner's office. Officer Jay Waters was instructed to stay with Ethan and Xana at that location, and the morgue transport vehicle came back to 1122 King Road, and Sergeant Baker himself escorted Kaylee and Madison to the same location, to the medical examiner's office in Washington. That's documented, and I took these notes because I thought it was so important, because so many people were sending us messages and saying they're covering this up. This was early on. I'm not saying that this is recent, but remember early on they were like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. There's no evidence that they even removed those bodies there. This is, it was just all kinds of things going on. So these reports are detailed and documented.
And timely, done immediately, contemporaneously performed, unlike, again, another agency who shall remain nameless.
Correct. And we heard that, obviously, with the Karen Reed case. That's what Ed is alluding to. I'll say it. This was the T's were crossed, the I's were dotted.
And you know what? There was snow all over the ground over there, but nobody broke out a leaf blower.
Oh, Ed, you're getting a little misty on me. Let's take a listen to this piece. This is from 4 hours ago. An investigative reporter talked to some of the investigators, and we're going to hear from Bill Thompson and the Lieutenant Darren Gilbertson from the Idaho State Police.
And Kana, what new details did you learn from this interview?
Several, Alex. Good to be here with you. So this is the first time that anyone is hearing from Lieutenant Darren Gilbertson. He is the lead detective on this case for Idaho State Police, and he was joined by current Moscow Police Chief Anthony Jollinger, as well as lead prosecutor Bill Thompson. And Alex, we did our interview right inside here. This is the Latah County Courthouse. We were sitting in courtroom 3 for our interview. That is the courtroom where a majority of Bryan Kohberger's hearings were held when he was here in Latah County before this was moved to Boise. And look, a few things that are very important here that we heard from lead prosecutor Bill Thompson initially, that they didn't know who the target was, right? Well, what he told me today is that he personally feels that, like, for whatever reason, the target was one of the 2 women on the 3rd floor of this home. The 2 women on the 3rd floor of this home, Alex, were Kaylee and Maddie. Take a listen.
I personally feel that for whatever reason, he targeted one of the young women on the 3rd floor. And the fact that he found them together, whether that was planned, we'll never know. It's more likely than not, he did not expect to encounter Xana and the others up and about.
Remember, Ed, we saw Bill Thompson on scene the morning of these heinous murders, these quadruple murders, and we'll say their names till the sun comes down: Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Xana Kernodle arguably put up the most extreme fight because she had over 50 various wounds, and most of them were defensive, Ed. But Bill Thompson, he saw this crime scene. the prosecutor in Latah County, was out there on the scene, and no doubt he saw this crime scene, because those bodies, we know through the reports, were not removed from 1122 King Road until 28 hours. And for those of you who don't know military time, that's 9:28 p.m. on the 13th. Correct, Ed?
Correct.
It was unfortunate. We are fortunate that he got scared and ran and left without harming Dylan or Bethany. Dylan was so vulnerable. I mean, that young woman had an angel watching over her that night, or that early that morning.
No
She
question.
had an angel there.
Do you think that Maddie was the target and that he was surprised to find Kaylee?
I don't think that we can tell what room he went into first. He could have very well turned left at the top of the stairs into Kaylee's room and seen an empty room. Or, as you suggest, he could have intended on going directly to Maddie's room.
So even as we narrow this down here, Alex, there are still some looming questions here. And a reminder to our viewers that the knife sheath that was found underneath Madison Mogen, we're told by authorities, was found immediately. Also notable here that we've learned that Kaylee's injuries were far more significant than Maddie's, and she was in fact described by authorities as unrecognizable when they found her, Alex.
Wow. And that notion of motive is one of the big mysteries still with this case. But Kana, we also learned a little bit more about the night that Kohberger was questioned.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is the first time that we're hearing from Lieutenant Darren Gilbertson, and he traveled to Pennsylvania with another detective from Moscow Police, Brett Payne. And when they traveled to Pennsylvania after Bryan Kohberger's arrest, they sat with him, they interviewed him. And he said that their interview was lengthy, that he was respectful, and that they talked a lot about things surrounding Washington State and his education, but that the tide really shifted when they asked him specifically about the murders here in Idaho.
And then about the third time, he was more pointed, wanting to know. And we said, well, I feel like you probably know why we're here. We're detectives from Idaho, and we're here because of the case in Moscow. And as soon as we mentioned that, then he stopped and he said, I don't want to talk anymore.
They described a few other things from that arrest as well. They told me that they watched the body-worn cameras from the officers making that arrest, and that Bryan Kohberger was in fact sorting trash, wearing gloves at the time that he sort of tried to run down the stairs, but that he was met by officers and then he was taken into custody without incident. They had been surveilling him for quite some time, and they told me that it was a bit odd that he was seen wearing gloves all over the place, in places that it wouldn't make sense, like at the DMV and at the pharmacy. And Alex, they also told me that they would surveil him at night, and that one night while he was wearing dark clothing, officers surveilling him almost hit him essentially as he was running across the street. So again, we're learning a lot of new details. I also want to mention to you, Alex, that there's been a lot of questions here about what was Bryan Kohberger carrying, right? We know the surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen, described someone clad in black carrying something like a vacuum. And the way that Bill Thompson described it to me was about like a container. And he went like this. And he said that Dylan described the man we now know as Bryan Kohberger walking past her holding a container with both hands like this.
Ed, what do you think that container was? I mean, we'd have to be guessing at it, but something for him to maybe discard gloves, discard items, but that's a small container. Yeah.
Maybe he took a trophy.
Yeah, perhaps. And you know, some of this information that they're reporting on is just 4 hours old. Until now, I wasn't aware that they almost hit Kohberger when they were doing surveillance, and he was going about his business wearing PPE, gloves. I mean, who does that? Who goes around and goes to their through their regular routine, daily routine, with gloves on.
Yeah.
And
Well,
apparently,
guess what?
it's this guy.
No gloves in prison.
Yeah, he ain't getting gloves. That's for sure. I want to say hello to Cindy Holenbeck and all the super chatters and the gifted memberships. Thank you for being here. Cindy's from Pullman, Washington area, and down and also in Moscow. So thank you, Cindy, and thank you for sharing the uploaded documents. Let's just let the rest of this play, and then Ed, we're going to take some questions from the audience, because I know the audience has a lot of questions. At the end of the show, for 15 minutes, we'll take some questions.
Wow. It's pretty, it's something. Oh, the prison that he's headed to.
Yeah. In fact, we were able to get a tour of the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. That is where Bryan Kohberger is now. And what's happening now is there is an assessment process that's going on that can take between 7 and 14 days. And during that assessment process, he will essentially be secluded from the other inmates while they try to figure out what is the best place to put him for his safety and for the safety of others. And so that will take a little bit of time, because there's a lot of different levels of security in that institution. At the highest level of security, Alex, those inmates are in their cell for 23 hours a day, and when they are moved in restraints. But there's several other lower levels of security as well.
This is the part that we'll get into towards the end of this, Ed, but Bryan Kohberger is not going to be a big fan in prison. He will be, because of his knowledge of the criminal justice system and his studies. He will be eventually accepted by some of the prison population, but we're going to get into that conversation towards the latter part of the show. Ed, what do you got on the top of your head? I got to go full screen with you.
I got my special edition blood solo cup.
This is the wrong show for that, Ed. Please put the cup down. Ed, I wanted to just go to you because we are going to now be talking about the autopsies of these 4 victims. It's kind of again, for the audience here, this may be some conversation that you might be sensitive to. So if you suffer from any PTSD or anything like that, this might be a chance for you to kind of maybe tune out or mute it. If you have children around or if somebody's watching with their grandkids, please. We're going to start discussing a little bit about these documents and the conversations that they had as it pertains to the injuries to these victims. Ed, did you get a chance to look at some of these reports?
Yes. And, I'm seeing a lot in the chat about that second weapon.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. We heard Steve was on by telephone, another channel, telling a reporter that he believes there was a second weapon used because his daughter had sustained injuries that he believed were made by, or was told were made by, a circular item with parallel lines or with lines in it. And right away, I said, well, that could be the K-bar knife too. All right. Because as you can see from here,
if they used the back of it, or
if he had it in a sheet like this and he smacked her in the mouth with it,
it would leave those lines.
Or in the face, you're going to get this type of impression evidence that could be left behind from being hit with something like this.
Right. Good point there, Ed. And, not a lot of people have looked at that. They look at and they were talking about brass knuckles and things of that nature. Let's play this piece where he calls into Banfield's show. I think this was on her podcast. So let's take a listen to what Steve had to say.
So it bruised her with stripes around her mouth. So she started making noises, screaming. She woke up. They said she woke up. The blood pooled in a certain way to show that she was sitting up. And he kept punching her in her face and stabbing her in the top of her head.
Jesus Christ, what an animal.
Yeah, I don't think that weapon murdered her. And that's the kind of games that these people are playing. He punched her face. He knocked her teeth out. That didn't kill her. So they're playing those kind of games with you guys. Yeah, her teeth were busted out. Yeah. So maybe that didn't murder her. So technically it wasn't a murder weapon.
Right.
But come on. I mean, why are you protecting a monster?
And
Why
so
is Idaho protecting the monster? No, I think there's another weapon. Yeah, it's rounded with stripes in, is how it was described to us. Yeah, it was.
Ed, could you put that up again? So Steve, this is Kaylee's dad, Goncalves, says it was rounded with stripes in it. That is a K-bar knife. And Ed, I don't want you to take it out because YouTube will go crazy with us, but keep that up there just for a second. Rounded with stripes in it. And as Ed just described, either in the sheath or even outside of the sheath, in his hand, if he struck her with that quickly a few times. And again, we said we're going to talk about some stuff from tough things here. Kaylee's face was unrecognizable to the responding officers. This is documented. We're not just saying this to say it. You guys read it. Let us know in the chat if you read those reports. The responding officers said that she was unrecognizable. And my heart bleeds. My heart breaks for the Goncalves family and all the victims in this case. All their families are hurting. But Steve, so here he is on this Drop Dead Serious podcast of Ashley Banfield on the phone talking about a second weapon. And who would know better than the forensic examiners, Ed? Who does that? Who goes in that autopsy suite and makes a determination if there was one weapon, two weapons? Whose job is that, Ed?
Well, that's the pathologist's job. Again, if we fall back to the training of your pathologist, they're looking for pattern evidence, okay, and they're looking for signs of we call it wounds and weapons. Wounds and weapons. Okay, I have a wound. What was the weapon? Okay, and so again, apparently they may have blunt force injury to her mouth to break her teeth. And that left a pattern of the blunt force instrument that was used to create the injury. And again, rounded object with stripes, as they called it, stripes. But as you can see, rounded object with stripes, a series of parallel lines that are cut into the handle of the K-bar. Okay. Right. And if you're holding this in the locked in the sheath and you smack somebody with this, it's gonna hurt. You're gonna cause some serious injury with that.
Right. And MP in the chat, an amazing Ant Sarge is here, so we got to watch what we're doing, Ed. Amazing Ant, our great friend, retired NYPD sergeant. Thank you for being here. MP says, what about a mag light, an ML50LX? If he had a mag light, which we don't know because he didn't leave it behind, he took it with him. But what we know is that he left that knife sheath behind, and it was underneath Maddie's body on the bed. Mm-hmm. And that knife sheath, we don't know when he extracted the knife out of it. And yeah, there you go.
DNA on that right there. DNA.
Correct. So we're going to listen to just a little bit more of Steve Goncalves.
They said she woke up, the blood pooled in a certain way to show that she was sitting up, and he kept punching her in her face and stabbing her in the top of her head.
Jesus Christ, what an animal.
Yeah, I don't think that weapon murdered her. And that's the kind of games that these people are playing. He punched her face. He knocked her teeth out. That didn't kill her. So they're playing those kind of games with you guys. Yeah, her teeth were busted out. Yeah, so maybe that didn't murder her. So technically, it wasn't a murder weapon.
Right.
But come on. I mean, why are you protecting a monster?
And
why is Idaho protecting the monster? No, I think there's another weapon.
And I just want you to discuss this brass knuckles, because I guess people on YouTube and others are talking about it. I want you to discuss the brass knuckles. And again, a forensic pathologist, the folks at the medical examiner's office, well versed in conducting these autopsies and knowing exactly how injuries occur to human bodies, and they did all 4 of these autopsies. Your thoughts on the brass knuckle theory?
Well, they're all different types of brass knuckles, and they come in all different sizes and shapes and configurations. So, I mean, it's really tough to say that it could be brass knuckles. I would think that, any pathologist worth their salt would have enough reference materials to look at on cases of blunt force trauma to the mouth involving brass knuckles and look at the photographs and see if they're consistent with what they're seeing at the autopsy they're performing on that specific victim.
Right.
But the way the way he's describing it sounds like the knife.
Yeah, and that makes the most sense. I know you've held it up several times. Can we do it just one more time? Because he used that. It's a fact that he used that knife, not this particular knife, but a K-bar style knife, to commit these heinous murders. And look at that knife. Look at it. Look at the rounded. This makes more sense than any other theory out there, in my opinion. He used that in a similar fashion as what you described, Ed.
Well, that's why the prosecutor and law enforcement said they don't believe there was a second weapon.
Correct.
They say that, and after the sentencing, they said that at a press conference. Okay, because this weapon could be the source of that pattern injury to her mouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's listen to our good friend Bryan Enton as he talks in detail. This is word for word some of the reports in the document dump. So let's take a listen to this quickly, and then we'll come back and we'll take your questions.
From his autopsy report, fatal stab wound under left clavicle, severed his subclavin vein and subclavin artery.
For the folks that are watching that maybe didn't Google what the clavicle is, Ed, could you just quickly describe that? I'll put you back on.
So, your clavicle is up here, in the shoulder area. You have these 2 bones right in here. And so that's what they're talking about. Now, we're talking about, in this case,
Ethan Chapin.
Ethan, okay, the male victim. And the extent and the amount of damage to veins and arteries were horrific. And that just leads, in fact, to where his position of the body was, and the blood coming outside of the house could be associated with Ethan and his position in that room.
And Zana as well, because she was in that room as well, too. So, or outside of it. Stab wounds under the left clavicle, severed subclavin vein and artery. Ed,
now with an artery being damaged and by a sharp force injury or any other type of weapon for that matter, and exposed, it's going to create a specific type of blood stain, and it's called arterial spatter. And what ends up happening is, you have you're going to have 2 beats of your heart. And if you've ever seen an EKG, your EKG printout, you'll see the up and down of the 2 beats of your heart. And so when your heart beats once and then beats twice, it's going to spurt blood out of that wound. And when it impacts the surface, it will leave a wave like an EKG.
Right.
On that surface, and you can tell because it's being acted on by a force greater than gravity, and it's a pump. It's pumping and squirting out of that damaged artery.
Right. And I once saw someone with a femoral artery injury.
Femoral, yeah, by the thigh, yes, in the groin.
That was squirting up in the air, like it was just insane, the amount of blood. And when we took the victim to Brookdale Hospital, he wound up dying at the hospital. The doctors that saw him in the trauma room said you only have basically minutes to get somebody, or a very short period of time to get somebody to the hospital or stop that bleeding. And not many people know how to do it. Jugular vein completely severed, and sharp force injuries. Jugular vein, we all know, is in the neck, and that too will make you lose a lot of blood very fast. And there was that question, Ed, that reporters asked: had there been a quick call to 911, could these victims have been saved? I don't think so with these injuries that are described here. I really don't.
No. I mean, the amount of blood he lost it would be in a short amount of time, especially with an arterial damage and the jugular vein.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what it said. The amount of blood that was in that room must have been horrific.
Yeah. So someone said, is this a quick death? It's violent. It's personal.
It depends on the sequence of the injuries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we know with all of these victims, with the exception of Maddie, there was a lot of damage to each victim. Let's let this continue to play. Thank you for that, Eileen.
Jugular vein severed, only had sharp force injuries, wounds caused by sharp object like knife. Xana Kernodle, 1 laceration on her right lung, 2 lacerations in her heart. She had 50 plus stab wounds, mostly defensive. So we knew that Kaylee...
Ed, we talked about this with Barbara Butcher, legal medical death investigator. You worked with her at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office in the DNA lab. People do this. People grab at...
That's right.
Right. So we heard about injuries on the inside of her hand, the outside, the forearms, doing this. She really fought. She fought very strongly against Kohberger.
Yeah, it's evident by the injuries she sustained that of all the 4 victims, she was the only one that had those types of defensive injuries, those type of defensive wounds. So she fought back. Okay.
Now I want to talk about for the audience only. I mean, we obviously, you and I know what this is, but the one laceration on the right lung, okay, is that from the knife penetrating into the lung? And that they're listing that as laceration to the right lung, and then it says 2 lacerations to the heart. Is that 2? And I hate to even talk this out, but people want to know this. And I know people want to know.
So trigger alert, folks. When we're talking about these lacerations, it's not just a stab. It's a stab with movement, and it's going to cause tearing. And there's also associated with the blunt force injury. So you could see on the edge of this knife, you have a hilt, okay, right here and here. So when you hold this, it stops your hand from going forward if you're holding this correctly. And that hilt can sometimes go in and create blunt force injury and give you a pattern of it. But what we're talking about here is not just a stab wound or a puncture wound. We're talking about an injury with movement and blunt force injury associated with it as well. And there's going to be some tearing and some bridging in the lung and in the heart that is not just a cutting injury or slicing injury.
Yeah, it is horrific to hear this, and it definitely is a trigger alert. But again, if you're following this case, these are the details that are released, and there's going to be so much more. We're going to also, see and hear some of these interviews, we hope, with Bryan Kohberger that they recorded. I'm not 100% sure if they'll release them, but we're going to have a lot to talk about and a lot to break down and unpack as it pertains to these document dumps now and in the future.
Mostly defensive. So we knew that Kaylee fought back, but now 50 plus stab wounds, mostly defensive with Zana. Only had sharp force injuries. Madison Mogen, left lung laceration, liver laceration, only had sharp force injuries.
Ed, when they say only had sharp force injuries, and you just described what sharp force injuries are. I mean, she sustained sharp force injuries from a K-bar knife, a liver laceration, and a left lung laceration. These are serious injuries as well. These are deadly injuries that we know Madison Mogen incurred here. I just feel that Bryan Kohberger at some point in this attack had to get tired. I mean, think about it, Ed.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when the district attorney said that he ran out of the house because he was scared, and that's why he left 2 people alive.
Yeah.
I think about this.
I don't think he had enough energy to do.
He had to be extremely exhausted after. You can have all this adrenaline pumping. I get all of that and so forth, endorphins, adrenaline, all of this thing pumping through you. Okay, and who knows? If he was on drugs or anything else. We don't know. But with this amount of injuries to these 4 victims, he had to have been exhausted, and I believe that is far more likely why he didn't attack a victim that he came face to face with.
Yeah, Bethany Funk and the 2 surviving roommates. Look, Bryan Kohberger committed these heinous acts in 13 minutes or under. It was a short period of time. And at the end of the day, I believe that the one person that came face to face with him, the only reason she's alive is because he was too exhausted and he didn't have the energy to do it again. If he had the energy, I believe that he would have. We know that this is a monster. He's not even a man. This is an evil monster. He's a demon. I won't call him an animal. He's a savage demon. You look up devil in the dictionary, and there's a picture of Bryan Kohberger's face. He is a monster. He's a monster of all monsters because he has no feelings. His own mother was sobbing in the courtroom and he wouldn't even look at her. His own mother who gave birth to him. And then remember the conversation he had when he was younger on these groups that he was in. I forgot the name of it. I have it written down somewhere, but he talked about that he feels like he's a piece of human flesh and that he's got no feelings. And, he talked about his father and put down his dad and, called him all these different things and said these not nice things about his father. The guy's a monster.
Yeah, at the sentencing, he had an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in front of him, and the bottom part had a black heart.
Yeah.
Somebody drew a black heart in a square. Yeah. Was a black heart, and I was like, "What the?" And I was like, and how does his attorney allow him to have that present at the sentencing?
Just goes to show you the day and age we're living in, because I don't know, if I was his defense attorney and he was doing that, I would have grabbed that and crumpled it up and got rid of it.
Guys like this, like Jeffrey Dahmer and so forth, they don't do well in prison.
No.
Right? No. Because they freak the other prisoners out.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy freaks and creeps out everybody he comes into contact. And we heard in this document dump of some of the inmates in Latah County and where he was being held, and now we know where he is. He's in a real shithole. His world has come crashing down on him, and I don't feel an ounce of any type of sympathy for this scumbag. I hope he doesn't have one good day and he rots from the inside out. I hope that he has not one good day and bugs and roaches and all kinds of things crawl over him all day and night when he's sleeping, because he sleeps during the day. I hope that inmates in the commissary who are making his meals, do all kinds of great things to it. And I don't care, look, I know I'm going to take a lot of shit for this, but I hope that they do him dirty. And at the end of the day, for those of you who want to be a cheerleader for this monster, because they're still out there, Ed, those people are still out there.
Absolutely. Evil walks amongst us. Okay. And you never know what evil looks like. Okay. So
They're
don't
writing this scumbag letters and sending them pictures. We got it. Yeah, I mean, we know. Look at Wade Wilson. The guy murdered 2 innocent people, and you got women sending him bikini pics and sending him money and all kinds of craziness going on with that character in Florida. So yeah, these people are out there. Let's listen to the rest of this.
Ron, 1 second. I saw a question in the chat about how much blood can you lose before you die. Well, you have about 10 pints of blood in total. So if you lose a little more than half of that, you're probably likely going to die. So about 5 pints or more, you're probably not going to make it.
Thank you for that, Ed. Thank you for answering that question.
And then Kaylee Goncalves, there was a left lung laceration, a liver laceration. Think about what was going on here. 2 subdural bleeds, stab behind her clavicle, cut her subclavicle vein and artery, sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries. So, stuff.
So it lists 20 plus stab wounds. We've heard different variations of that. Ed, again, we talked about the lung lacerations, the liver lacerations, the 2 subdural bleeds. Any comments about this this attack on Kaylee Goncalves? It seems to have been very angry, very very vicious. And
yeah, there's definitely a lot of rage and hate associated with this. Now, a lot of times too, with the stab wounds, there is a pattern that develops in the wounds that I've seen over my career when the attacker is so enraged and full of hate that they're disorganized in their attack and their wounds are all over the place. And then as they slowly regain consciousness, there becomes a circular pattern that sometimes develops on the victims when the rage goes away and the organization comes back to the attacker. I'd like to see the autopsy sketch of these wounds to see if that pattern developed here on any of these victims.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure that the Latah County prosecutor and so forth, I'm not sure if they'll release that, but certainly it would be interesting to see it for investigative reasons and to see what exactly happened. And I think that some of the families, like Kaylee Goncalves' dad, would want to see that. It's clear and apparent that the more information that they can get, the better off they will be. I'm talking about the Goncalves family, and my heart breaks for them because nobody here, none of us, should ever judge anyone as it pertains to how much information they want to know about their flesh and blood. This is their daughter, and nobody has the right to say, oh, he's out of line, or this one's out of line, or this one didn't say enough. That is really a sin to do that. And anybody that does that is a special kind of evil in my eyes. Ed, I don't know how you feel about that, but
no, I agree.
I got to say, what do you got up on the screen?
So Kathy Hudson brings up a question that we hear time and time again, and I described it earlier. I don't know if she came into the show late, but most cut their hands when stabbing another. Bryan had no cuts on his hand. Why not? Okay. Well, okay. Here's that knife. And again, here's the hilt right here. This and this is a hilt. It projects beyond the handle. Okay. Yeah. And so if you're holding the knife correctly,
Ed, go ahead, take it out. Screw it.
I'll just pull it out just a little bit. If you're holding the knife correctly,
take it all the way out so they could see.
And you're stabbing, and the tip hits a bone that stops the forward momentum,
Lift it up so we can see.
The tip hits the bone or an object and stops its forward momentum. The hilt stops your hand from going forward and slicing it on the blade.
So that is the reason why he had no cuts, because he had that hilt that stopped the forward motion from continuing on. It's not like a regular knife. This is a knife that's designed for one reason and one reason only.
It's the military. It's the Marine's knife.
Yeah. It's a killing machine. And that's what he used, and that's what he went for. Sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, Ed. We can opine about him perhaps putting his hand over her mouth, a pillow, a sheet, anything to cause asphyxial injuries, correct?
Well, it was also manual strangulation, chokeholds, things of that nature. What kind of injuries are they talking about? Are they talking about bruising around the neck? Are they talking about petechial hemorrhaging in the eyes, the lips, where there's a lack of oxygen causing the capillaries, the tiny little capillaries, to explode and leave these pinpoint blood stains inside the lips and eyes and so forth? So obviously there was some kind of deprivation of oxygen, that type of thing going on here. So not only she was stabbed, she was beaten, and she was choked.
So horrific. And kudos to her sister, Olivia, who gave an unbelievable victim impact statement. And listen, all the families who got up and gave victim impact statements did a fantastic job. Every single family member, every single friend, anybody that got up there, it takes a lot of guts to get up there in front of a murderer and give a statement. But her sister, she did her so much justice. She did so well. She delivered with high impact. It was like she kicked Kohberger in the balls 50 times. So I loved what she did. I could watch that victim impact statement 100 times over, and I'm just there, just cheering her on and clapping it up. So let us know what you think in the chat. How all these folks who got up and gave the victim impact statements.
Her subclavicle vein and artery, sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, so suffocated, blunt force injuries. This is kind of where the question about the second weapon has come in, and then 20 plus stab wounds on Kaylee Goncalves.
Yeah, well, Bryan, that might make a little more sense as to why we're learning also that some of the colleagues at Washington State University said they saw Bryan Kohberger with injuries on his knuckles and scratch marks, what seemed like scratch marks on his face. So this makes a lot more sense. There was a pitched fight, at least on the third floor, and it appeared on the second floor as well with Zana. I also have not seen anything yet, and I just want to correct some of the reporting that's out there. I have not seen any reporting that there was carving into, Ethan Chapin's leg. That was something that made a huge headline, and it was very distressing.
That's about all we know. That's the best that I could think of.
All right, I'm gonna
fell
stop this here because I want to go on to the next thing. Ed, what are you doing?
Hang Sing.
Oh, he's checking the hang sing. I always got to put you in line, Ed. I don't know what you're doing when you're looking down there, but I always think it's some kind of research.
I'm doing research. I saw something in the chat. It aroused my curiosity, and I said, "Oh, let me check this out."
I knew it. That's why I love you, Ed. All right, listen. Let's take Let's take a look at this. Brian Enton, our good friend, went out to this Idaho max security institution. And I think if people see this, they'll get a better look at what Bryan Kohberger is living right now at this moment. And now he's going to be in segregation for a period of time, and he may not be segregated his whole incarcerated life. There's going to come a time where Kohberger is going to be in general population and free game if he makes it that far. So don't think that he's going to be protected for the whole. And he's not even 30 years old or whatever, however old he is. I don't even know. I don't give a fuck how old he is, but he's young, and he is going to have a long time inside this institution. Let's take a listen. Bryan Enton went inside and got a little bit of a tour of Bryan Kohberger's new home.
Your phone's inside. We got the tour. We got the full tour. We were there for almost 2.5 hours, actually. We walked around the whole place. It's sterile. But there were some things surprised me how awful it was. Something surprised me, though. I was surprised some things that the prisoners do get to do that I wasn't expecting. Take a look. So this is the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. You can see the double barbed wire. This is where the most dangerous and violent people in Idaho are housed. We're going to go inside for this tour. Very, very rare look at what it's like on the inside. This is the area of the prison where Bryan Kohberger could end up. Long-term restrictive housing and what's known as closed custody, protective custody, where prisoners who could be hurt by the population go, or prisoners who could hurt others have to stay. The prisoners here are inside these cells 23 hours a day. All food and water is sent into the cells through these little doors. They can sit at these tables, but are secured to the tables with shackles, or put into these cages where they can use tablets for visitation.
I love that he has to be put in the cage. I don't know. I mean, it sounds kind of harsh, but not for Bryan Kohberger. Not for what he did to these 4 innocent victims. So for me, I think this is fitting. I don't think it's enough as far as I'm concerned. I made a statement that I would have volunteered to be on that firing squad.
But are secured to the tables with shackles, or put into these cages where they can use tablets for visitation. While we were watching, we saw inmates doing something called fishing, when they use strings from blankets or a t-shirt to send notes under the door. That's why these bean bags are placed at the foot of the door to stop them from doing it.
Isn't that something?
Almost every inmate can buy a tablet to have in their cell for $100. It has music, email, and movies. And they can also buy a TV to keep in their cell, which has basic cable. This is the outdoor area where the prisoners can go 1 hour a day.
See, for me, I don't think that they should have access to email to the outside world because it's dangerous because they could be communicating with people on the outside and, getting people to bring stuff in for them or do it's just like a security issue. And he doesn't deserve that. I feel like he should be able to go to the law library, go to, if he wants to go to church, which I know he wouldn't want to, but he shouldn't have access to email and the internet and basic cable. Listen, I know some people, some friends of mine that can't even afford basic cable. Why is this shithead, scumbag, murderer being able to afford, you have to pay for it, but why should he be able to get basic cable? I mean, am I off base on this? Let me know what you think in the chat, because to me, this is fucking enraging. This is enraging. This is outrage that this scumbag gets to go and have basic cable and a freaking tablet for $100. So mommy and daddy provide him with commissary to pay for this tablet. He's able to sit back and kick back and listen to Spotify and Bryan Enton's podcast. I don't know, Ed. It seems backwards to me.
Yeah, this is beyond 3 hots and a cot.
Yeah. Look at this comment. Darcy said, I gave up cable so I can eat. How about that?
Well, he gets all his meals on us.
Yeah. And medical attention. Mm-hmm. His little starry vision that he's got, right? With the little fuzzy vision. They'll attend to it there.
It has music, email, and movies. And they can also buy a TV to keep in their cell, which has basic cable. This is the outdoor area where the prisoners can go 1 hour a day. Some have to stay in these cages because they are so dangerous. For prisoners who are in protective custody, they may also get time here in the library or the computer lab. Sexual offenders and murderers of young women and children can be shunned by the population here, which could be an issue for a high-profile inmate like Bryan Kohberger. Though we're told after the newness wears off, most inmates begin to fit in.
You see what he just said? And he didn't say that because he's reporting it. He was told by the warden of that prison, after all the hoopla wears off, like I was just saying before, 5-10 years into his sentence or less, they're not going to be babysitting this guy in solitary or in segregation for a long period of time. So they'll have their chance at him. And listen, people who murder women, children, elderly, they're not really the best fans. They don't have a big fanfare in there. Yes, there are like-minded murderers and bad people in there, but his thing is like you have to be able to get along, and he is so awkward. He can't get along with anybody.
Yeah, his stares looking at other inmates is not going to go over well.
It's not. It certainly isn't. And look at this. I mean, they've got this little teeny little window, and then I think it's like windows in the cells, like, very narrow windows in the cells from what I could see from the outside. But yeah, I mean, some people are like outraged that these this is what Chad Daybell. This is where Chad Daybell is, by the way. A baby murderer. He killed those 2 innocent children, and his own wife, and many others that they plotted to. This is the same location where Chad Daybell is.
So, Ashley, they will do an evaluation of Kohberger after the sentencing, the Idaho prison system will, and then they will determine exactly where he'll go, although it appears this is really the only place. This is the only max prison. This is where the worst of the worst goes. And I was surprised. Maybe I just didn't know that.
Look at what we got.
Oh, God. I did see that, yeah.
They're still out there, these fucking weirdos. Like, come on, the guy pled guilty. How many people think that if Bryan Kohberger was innocent, as he was for 2.5 years, his lawyer was saying he was innocent and we're going to prove his innocence, and there's a third party and there's other people. If he truly was innocent, what's in it for him to plead guilty? Why would a PhD student say, you know what, and you put up a really great, 2.5 years for me. Let me just plead guilty and just get this over with. I don't stand the chance. Come on, people, get your heads out of your ass. Ed, let's go to the chat. We promised the chat that we would take questions. So I'm going to go to the live chat. But first, I want to say thank you to all the super chatters. And there was a lot of them. Mo, thank you. Preciado, thank you for the 5. DutyRon Ed. Why didn't the judge block Bryan Kohberger from making money off this case? Books, movies, etc. Does Idaho not have laws in place to prevent it? I think the judge made a statement about that. And I don't see Bryan Kohberger being able to make any money and profit off of it, because there's such big judgments that judge hit him with as well, that would prevent him from making money. Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, he's not going to make any money off of this. I believe Idaho has laws to prevent this.
People are talking about that they don't, and all this stuff. We're going to consult with an attorney from Idaho to talk about that, and we'll see. Thank you, Torch Lake Girl, for the $2. This prison is too easy. Eye for an eye. It's really not that easy. It just seems like too many giving. Look, there's a fine line that the prison executive staff walks with, trying to keep prisoners in line and giving them little bits and little nuggets here and there. They're not going to be seeing pay-per-view and HBO and things of that nature, but they try to give them some things to keep them busy, so there's not prison riots and so forth. Laura, thank you for gifting the membership. Laura, thank you for being a member for 9 months. The best is right here with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Well, we appreciate you. Without you guys, we couldn't be what we are. You guys are what makes this a great place. Heather, whatever, member for 34 freaking months, maybe longer. Thank you for being here. Cat H, member for freaking 50 months. Love to Zana, Kaylee, Maddie, and Ethan. Amen to that. Schmitty Schmacks, always present for duty. Member for over 45 months, a fan until I take my last breath. I love you guys. Wow. Thank you, Schmitty. We love you. Courtney, thank you for the 5 super sticker. We appreciate it. Cindy Vance, thank you for becoming a new member. Cindy, thank you for the 5. We said that before. Deborah, thank you for gifting those 5 memberships. We really appreciate that. Mary Fritz, thank you for the super sticker. Kim, thank you for the super sticker from the UK. Angel Rock with Lori. Thank you, Potvan. Oh, Dennis, any relation to Dennis Potvan? Member for a month. So happy to join the channel. Ron and Ed and everyone here. Thank you for that. Coffee Girl, thank you for being a member for 19 months. 2 of my favorite men to learn from. Well, we appreciate you. All right. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon with the questions as pertains to Bryan Kohberger and everything that we talked about here tonight. Let's go. We want to take your questions. Amazing Aunt, good to see you still in the chat. I appreciate you. Kathleen says, great show as usual. We appreciate it. Mo Preciado says, thank you for getting that info to us. You guys rock. You guys are the best. Thank you. Jolene says, DutyRon, yes, Idaho has the Slayer law. Can't profit off crimes. There you go. Jolene knows her stuff. She does her research. So thank you for that. Just the Thought says, evil at its best, sick man, even sicker parents to raise something like that. I know nothing about the parents. I know that the father came there to his rescue. Ed, you talked about that he made those 3 communications the morning of these murders, right? His dad, what the hell did he talk about? I want to know, does the dad know? It's the same thing with Bryan Laundrie, right? Killed Gabby Petito, went home, parked the van in the garage. They hit him. They snuck him out the back door or the front door. They knew what the hell their son did. Did Bryan Kohberger's parents know? The father came all the way across the country with a car, drive him home. Who knows? All right. Did you see any questions? Because I'm sitting here yapping.
Yeah, I saw a few questions. This one would had to do with did they suffer? How long would it take for them to die? Those are really tough questions to answer. Okay. Given the extent of the injuries and the arterial and carotid artery injuries, the blood loss would be very fast. Okay. And so when you lose that kind of blood very fast, it's like slowly going to sleep type situation there. Yes, there would be some pain, but I will tell you, I got sliced once on my hip, and I didn't know I was sliced. The blade was that sharp. I didn't feel it, and then it's only afterwards, after the adrenaline of the situation decreased, that I start to feel the pain, and then notice that I was bleeding.
Wow. Interesting to know that. Lori Shortleg, thank you so much for the gifting of the 5 memberships. Hey guys, if you could just take a moment, Ed and I would appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up, share it out to your social media platform, and hit that like button. We appreciate it so much. And BB2, thank you for the 10. Let's face it, we're paying for all this, TVs, iPads, one way or another. But they make
the meals, the doctors, the library. Yeah, we're paying for all of it.
It costs a lot of money, over $70,000-$80,000 a year to house these scumbag animals, vicious. They're not animals, monsters. I stand corrected. But yeah, exactly, Aunt BB2. Ed, will he get vegan meals, says Yogi Mama.
I don't know about that. I'd like to ask an expert about that, because it's not a religious thing. If you have like certain religious things like halal or kosher, I could see that. But I don't know. Is it cruel and unusual not to give a vegan meal? I don't know.
No, screw him. Jolene just sent me the Idaho Slayer law. I could read it, but go and read it. Idaho Slayer law. Ambitious. Am I saying that wrong? Yeah. Ambitious. There you go. DutyRon, did Kaylee's sister say something about him on heroin during a statement? Yeah, he's a heroin user. He
was a heroin addict back in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's a fact. He was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Bryan
I think he rehabbed, right?
Yeah, he rehabbed. And again, Marcus says screw his vegan meals, and Marion K says they are. Hey, I wanted to play something because Steve Gonzalez, outside of court on Wednesday, he gave an interview, and he said the F word a couple of times on national television, and they didn't censor him. Anybody catch him say that Bryan Kohberger looked him right in the eyes, and he could tell that he fucking hated me, or something of those words to that effect. Did anybody catch that? Put a 1 in the chat if you saw it. Put a 2 if you didn't see it or hear it. I'm going to play it here because I love that he said that with all the cameras and all Law and Crime. And look at all the mics. Law and Crime, ABC 6. There's so many outlets there. And he said it. Oh, should I not play it? Everybody heard it. You guys want to hear it? Yes or no? Just yes or no in the chat if you want to hear it. All right, let's play it. Let's do it. Here we go.
And she was struck, and there was quite a bit of damage to her face. So this guy's just an absolute monster. Anyone who thinks that he's otherwise, I just looked at pure demons out there. When I was looking at him, we had a stare down, and he's just filled with demons. He's dark pits of eyes, and there's something seriously wrong with that man.
Steve, why was it important for you to look him directly in the eyes? And what did you say as you spoke to him during that period?
I looked.
So the reporter said, "Why was it important for you to look him directly in the eyes?" And here's his answer.
Look him directly in the eyes. And what did you say as you spoke to him during that period?
I looked him straight in the eyes, and I just seen black holes and just anger at me. He was telling me with his face that he fucking hated me. He absolutely fucking hated me.
And why did you want to speak to him directly that way?
It's the most personal one. Like,
Yeah,
look at me in my eye. You took my daughter's life. Look at me.
Yeah,
Did your family get something today?
This is a strong family, and I wanted to just play that. And again, kudos to Steve. You know, his wife Christy, his daughter, his son was there. They all and all of these families are strong people. I don't know. I mean, I know that, you know, God forbid any horrific thing like this was to happen, you have to just push forward. But God, I admire the strength that this family has and the others, you know. So
you know, there were some things that came out of interviews they had done with people at the college that he was working with, and other students, right. And one of them had the conversation where you know, they were talking about, dying and how being killed, and, you know, how one said stabbing would really, freak me out, or whatever the case may be. He said, you know, like what, with a K-bar? And then there was the other fellow student there that said he had seen him with scratches and bruises on his hand, and that he had said he got into a car accident when there is no car accident, because that was investigated. They found that there was no car accident, no report of an accident, no damage to his vehicle, no repair of his vehicle. And I was like, you know, people don't normally just jump into a quadruple murder. Yeah. So what did he do before that? Did he, is there some unsolved case in that area that may need to be reopened? And then there was another issue that came to mind too, with the prosecutor saying, you know, you can't trust him to tell the truth, and, you know, it'd probably be a lie. Well, I mean, you make him proffer, okay, tell us where the knife is.
Right. Yeah.
So he's either going to tell you the truth or he's not. Okay. So
I think it was the judge who said that even if he told us, even if he made a statement, how are we to believe what he's saying?
Well, the proof is in the pudding, right? As they say, if he tells you where the knife is and you go and you find a knife, well, then you just validated what he said. If you go to where he said the knife was and it's not there, then you also then know that he's, you know, not going to tell you the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Rebecca, thank you for buying me a cup of coffee. Me and Ed, we both appreciate that. We're caffeinated to the hilt. Thank you for the comment that you left on the Buy Me a Cup of Coffee app. She said, I love your channel. You both of you guys are awesome. Well, we thank you so much. Hey, I wanted to share one thing with you guys before we go, and we're going to go in a few minutes. I wanted to give you an update on my African gray Popeye. He's on the mend. He's up on a perch. That's a hospital perch. It's a small one, but he had a stroke. He had 2 strokes, and he is up on that perch. There's a towel below him, and he can't get down off of there. So that's a hospital perch, and that's the update from Popeye Central. So I just wanted to give you that update on that. So let's close this out by, again, documents are galore. There are so many different documents. And someone asked, will the DNA trail come out? Well, where? And in this document dump, they talked about transporting, Ed, I want to get into that with you before we close. So Sergeant Baker went to the Idaho State Crime Lab. That's Moscow Police Sergeant Baker. He's all over these reports, and I'm looking to my left because I got notes on the screen here. On 11/21/22, Sergeant Baker went to the Idaho State Crime Lab in Meridian. He got the knife sheath and I guess the DNA profile that the Idaho State Crime Lab produced off that sheath. He flew the next day to Ortham Labs at 15:10 hours the next day, the 22nd, 11/22. And he handed the DNA profile. He put it in a container, put it in a backpack, and flew it. Got on an airplane, went through TSA, and he handed it off to Ortham Labs employee. And all of this stuff is documented, unlike Karen Reed case, where the Massachusetts State Police didn't document anything that they did for a fallen police officer who was killed. They did nothing. Everything is documented. I read this report. I took notes. That DNA went from chain of custody from the scene to the Idaho State Crime Lab. All of it documented. From the Idaho State Crime Lab, signed out by Sergeant Baker and flown directly to Ortham, signed by Ortham. Everything was done the right way. The chain of custody was 100% perfect. What do we got here? Off the record.
Off the record, do you think the public will be able to review the Farrell 3D model that was made of the crime scene? Well, you would have to have the reader to look at the data that was produced, unless there were hard copies of the 3D model, or the FBI made a physical model, although not to scale, and I don't understand why it wouldn't be to scale. They should have did it to scale. But anyhow, the defense was calling it the Barbie house or doll house or something to that effect, which I thought was kind of ridiculous statement to be making about that kind of demonstrative aid. Yeah, I don't see why not now.
Right. Hey, Bryan Kohberger, Brian Enton interviewed a bail bondsman, someone who is very familiar with the Idaho correctional facility where Bryan Kohberger is going, and he claims that Bryan Kohberger is at the toughest prison and will have a target on his back. Let's take a listen to this, and then we'll wrap it up.
What will Bryan Kohberger's life be like there?
His life is going to be a little more harsh than what it was in the Ada County Jail. When he was there, we couldn't legally say he was guilty yet. Now he is guilty. He doesn't have all that, kind of back and forth stuff. He is a guilty murderer, and he's going to have to be segregated. As you may know, people in prison don't like people that hurt women or children, and he's hurt women. And that's not something that the inmates there take lightly to. It's something that is definitely going to put a target on his back.
And the people in that same prison are the most dangerous.
They're the most dangerous in Idaho. That's where it is. The facility he's in is a men-only facility, and it's the most dangerous prisoners in Idaho.
Thank you for watching. Perfect. I love it. Ed, Andrea has a question for you.
I can't say that it is, and I can't say that it isn't, but I would be more leaning towards that he had done other things, like potentially leading up to this, killing animals. Then maybe he did kill somebody, a person. I would look for cases, unsolved cases in both. I know that they have, so but I was just saying in the beginning of the investigation, once he's been identified, and I'd be, if I was an investigator in Washington and Idaho and those adjoining states over there, plus Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the tri-state area of Pennsylvania, I'd be looking at unsolved cases that might be attributed to him.
Yeah, I agree. Linda says, DutyRon, in my humble opinion, Bryan Kohberger should not have access to anything. In my humble opinion, I agree with you. My humble opinion is Bryan Kohberger should be thrown in a hole underneath the prison and be a bucket, be lured down to him to take, to have his meals and his food in a bucket. And that same bucket he should use to defecate in and do all of his stuff too.
And he puts the lotion on the skin, or he gets the hose.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. That's how I feel about it. Agent 99 is here.
Okay, you missed it by that much. Okay, Ed, regarding what the judge said, I totally agree with you. Tell us where the knife is. If you lie, the deal is off. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Nothing wrong with that. I agree.
So Bryan Kohberger knew how to clean his devices. He did use a VPN. He did clean his devices, but he didn't clean them all. He didn't clean everything because we got his Amazon, all of his purchases that he made on Amazon, all of his searches for this disturbing porn and all the different stuff that he searched. There's a lot in the documents. I encourage you to go and demix, go and read these documents. It takes a lot of time to go through them. I spent hours going through them. There's a whole treasure trove of shit on Kohberger and what he did and his movements and all of his stuff. They subpoenaed everything, his Tinder accounts, all of his accounts that he had on social media and everything. So he didn't erase and clean all of his devices. He was not he was not meticulous as it pertains to that. Marcus Bateman, thank you for the 20. I wish someone had talked about Ethan at the sentence, but I understand why the family doesn't want to. Yeah, I respect the family's wishes. I know that they were they didn't want to be a part of that. They're individually doing this under their own terms. And who are we to point fingers or judge? And anybody that does that, I'll say it again, is a subhuman. How dare any of us point fingers at grieving families who had their loved ones slaughtered by a K-bar knife, by this monster? Who the hell are we to go and say, oh, they should have did this, they should have did that, they shouldn't have said this, they shouldn't have said that? That is absolute fucking hogwash. Sorry, not sorry. All right, here we go. Ed, let's wrap it up, an hour and 18. I want to thank everybody for being here. Amy, thank you for the 5. Oh, this is for you, Ed. Take it.
How do you see his eyes get over a horrific crime scene? I couldn't even imagine being a first responder. God bless them. Well, I bury myself in the science and the analytics of the horrific event. And I understand that what I do is extremely important to that victim and the victim's family and the community that they live in. And I take solace in the fact that I am helping, not hurting. And I'm going to give you everything I have within my abilities and training and experience and gifts from God to help and find out who did this.
Amen to that, brother. Yeah, it's not easy. Ed has processed over 2,600 crime scenes, and he worked in the DNA lab at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office after he retired. So, Ed, you've been around death for arguably 3 decades, or somewhere around there, and it takes a really strong, special kind of person. And Ed, you have a great support system. You didn't even mention that. You have a great support system in your loving wife and family.
Family of law enforcement, yes, and my wife, who I worked with for a short period of time.
Right.
At the 70 precinct where nobody knew we were dating. It's amazing. And then now you understand, if this, Ron has a picture of what this wall used to look like. My wife used to call it behind me, the I Love Me wall. It had all my certifications and plaques and graduation and promotions and all these different things. Excuse me. And then you understand, my dedication to my profession and forensics and why I get so upset when I see people doing such shoddy work in other investigations when there's no excuse for it.
Anybody interested in listening? It's about 8 minutes. Olivia's impact statement. Anybody interested in that? I know we got Ed. I know you got to go. It's an hour and 20. Anybody interested in that? If not, I'll just upload it. You guys could watch it as an upload. But I think it's worth listening to. She totally rips this guy apart, and it's 8 minutes. I think that I can listen to this all day, every day. And I know, Ed, you've had a heck of a day. So, I mean, if you want to, bow out, and yeah, there you go. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you being here. Love and respect always to Ed Wallace and obviously the victims. Ed, you always have something to say at the end of these things, so I'll let you do it.
Hey, folks, thanks for sharing all your time with us tonight. And thanks for spreading the word about us and your support. As always, it's all about the victims here, and thanks for supporting them. With that said, always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. Ed, love you, and thank you for taking out the time to educate us. We appreciate you. All right, there goes Ed Wallace. Let's take a listen to this, and then we'll end the show on this strong note.
I'd like to start by thanking the court for allowing me the time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Olivia, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Goncalves, and I was blessed to love Madison Mogen as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief. I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were two pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. Because the truth is, I'm angry. Every day I'm angry. At the inside of my own head, everything I wish I could say to you. The truth about me is when I heard the news, I didn't cry. I listened for them. I promised them I would, that I would fight for them, that I would show up no matter what it cost me. I swore I'd never let them feel alone. Because you see, I've always been their heavyweight. I've always been the one to fight the battles they didn't feel ready to fight themselves. All it ever took was a call, and they knew I would handle it for them, no matter the time, no matter the cost. They could wave their white flag because they knew I would never back down, not for them, and not even death could change that. Somewhere along the line, I started to think about what I would say to them if I was given just one last chance. If I could gather enough heartbreak or love or sacrifice or whatever it took to get just one message across, what would I say? Throughout this entire process, I've written my feelings down at every moment, my wishes, my love, my denial, my anger. And as one final act of love, I'd planned to read these thoughts, even jarring and discombobulating and not even making sense. Because for me, that was true love. As bare and as naked as it could be, not laced in pretty words or dressed for the occasion, but written through bleary eyes at 2 a.m. with clenched fists, angry at this reality. My true final act of love was to continue on without them, for them. That dream to read aloud my love to them, to bring meaning through pain, was the latest blow in realizing you don't deserve it. And Kaylee and Maddie don't need it. Kaylee and Maddie have always known my love, and they would never ask me to prove it by further victimizing myself to a defendant who has shown no guilt, no remorse, no apprehension. They would say to me, why would you give the satisfaction of showing vulnerability now? You promised you would never back down. And for that clarity, I'm thankful. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears resembling disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you.
Badass.
How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually pulling out your eyebrows? Why November 13th? Did you truly think your Amazon purchase was untraceable because you used a gift card? How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022. Which do you regret more? Returning to the crime scene 5 hours later, or never, ever going back to Moscow, not even once, after stalking them there for months? If you were really smart, do you think you'd be here right now? What's it like needing this much attention just to feel real? You're terrified of being ordinary, aren't you? Do you feel anything at all? Or are you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. If you're so powerful, then why are you still hiding, defendant? You see, I'm here today as me. But who are you? Let's try to take off your mask and see. You didn't create devastation. You revealed it in yourself. And that darkness you carry, that emptiness, you'll sit with it long after this is over. That is your sentence. And it was written on the wall long before you ever pled guilty. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else. Constantly scolding, turning your nose up to grammar mistakes, nitpicking and criticizing others. You wanted so badly to be different, to be special, to be better, to be deep, to be mysterious. You found yourself thinking you were better than everyone else, and you thought you could figure out the human psyche and see through it, all while tweaked out on heroin. Lurking in the shadows made you feel powerful because no one ever paid you any attention in the light. You thought you were exceptional, all because of a grade on a paper. You thought you were elite because your online IQ test from 2010 told you so. All of that seemed important. It's desperate. There is a name for your condition, though. Your inflated ego just didn't allow you to see it. Wannabe. You act like no one could ever understand your mind, but the truth is you're basic. You're a textbook case of insecurity disguised as control. Your patterns are predictable. Your motives are shallow. You are not profound. You're pathetic. You aren't special or deep, not mysterious or exceptional. Don't ever get it twisted again. No one is scared of you today. No one is intimidated by you. No one is impressed by you. No one thinks that you are important. You orchestrated this like you thought you were God. Now look at you, begging a courtroom for scraps. You spent months preparing, and still all it took was my sister and a sheath. You work so hard to seem dangerous, but real control doesn't have to prove itself. The truth is, the scariest part about you is how painfully average you turned out to be. The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your ass.
Oh, that's bullshit. They bleeped it out. She said Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. Hey, folks, I want to thank you for joining us for an hour and 30 minutes on a Friday night. You got lots of things you could do, other options. Ed and I appreciate you. We love you. We respect you. We thank you. I want to send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to all the victims' families. They need us now more than ever. Rally around them, support them, and just be there for them. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we'll bid you a fine Friday evening. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Love and respect from my house to yours. We'll see you soon. God bless.